Hey guys, Pope Sano here, back with a really important video about the future of jungling in League of Legends. You know, we have a lot of the intended changes that Riot is going to make to nerf the jungle fairly hard, and of course right now all of it is subject to change though. But we do know, however, that jungle is in need of nerfs according to Riot Freak and the balance team, and so this is how they're intending to make that happen. Look, there is a ton of changes here, so this is going to be how I'm distilling them down so you don't have to worry about running around and looking for all the information or watching Freak's like 2-hour-long video.
What the hell, boy?
Just note that I'm not going over all the individual numbers exactly because there's just so much information here already, and a lot of these numbers are likely going to change anyway. This is about giving you an overview about what to expect in preseason 14 and the coming patch, which in many ways is the start of preseason 14. There's a lot to go through, but before we begin, I just want to ask that if you enjoy my content, please consider subscribing to the channel. Alright, let's go. So starting off with the system nerfs. All of these are pretty much intended to target jungle in one way or another, but we're getting nerfs to dragons. Nerfed by about 30 to 40% for the individual dragons, and then they're actually increasing the strength of Dragon Soul by about 10 to 15%. Freak notes that the dragon is the most important objective in League, apparently, and it's, you know, I don't think it's as important as Rift Herald, or at least the first Rift Herald, but Freak acknowledges that the team that wins bot lane often is going to stack dragons, get that Dragon Soul, and probably win the game. And they identify that this is in part because the individual dragons are too strong. And they nerf junglers focusing bot lane by nerfing the dragons overall. So this is what they're doing. They're nerfing the standard dragons by a huge portion. Basically, in 1320, if you have 3 dragons, it'll be about as strong as having 2 dragons right now. Freak notes that they want to continue to have dragons be important, but nerfing how individual fights around the dragon natively snowball the game. Next, they're nerfing First Herald and its gold. First Herald is going to be worth less now, as a compensation nerf really for the dragon nerfs. And the second Herald is going to stay the same. Really, second Herald doesn't matter anyway. And this is good because the first Herald is still going to be very strong. But yeah, I guess we'll have to see really by how much are they going to be nerfing the Herald. They're also lowering death timers between levels 2 and 9 by about 2 to 6 seconds. And this isn't going to be linear. Level 1 is unchanged, level 10 is unchanged, and you know, this kind of nerfs early ganking because laners should lose less overall. Plus, when you consider the home guards that you get after death now, it shouldn't be as bad. It's an anti-snowball feature that does change really how all champions are affected by an early death or an early kill. But it definitely disproportionately affects jungle and top more in my opinion, because the jungle is the one roaming around ganking, and top lane is that, 1v1 island. And so there's just going to be less snowballing going on overall. They're decreasing the plate gold by 175 to 175, and these numbers are subject to change, but 50 gold is quite substantial. Again, this is aimed at an anti-snowball, anti-jungle nerf as well, because if the jungle takes Herald and then they can go to whatever lane they want to drop it, they're usually the one getting the turret plates. Likewise, in top lane, if there is that early death, or is really a death at any point, and the enemy top laner gets 2-3 turret plates on you at some point, the gold advantage is going to be starting to get very significant. So, let's say for instance that you take Heralds, and then you go top lane as a jungler, and you drop Herald there and it helps you get 2 plates. Well, now you're going to be getting about 100 less gold overall. Yes, that gold is distributed between all the champions there, but 100 less gold is 100 less gold. Moving on to some rune changes, Fleet Footwork is getting nerfed, as it's going to scale way worse now. We're going to see a bit of a pattern for how Riot is deciding to nerf a lot of these damage runes. So Fleet, it's AD and AP scaling going down by about half, or really even less than half the amount, which is quite significant. Press the attack also scaling a bit differently in that its flat rate is going to scale a bit better, but the 3 proc damage amp is going to stay stagnant at 8%. Dark Harvest is receiving the same treatment as Fleet. Its AD and AP ratio is getting hit pretty hard, and so it's not going to scale nearly as well. Electrocute, exactly the same. AD and AP ratio nerfs with slightly better late game scaling on its flat damage. Overall, these are complete nerfs to damage runes, and this is a direct nerf to individuals that are snowballing. Really, I believe Riot sees that junglers snowballing out of control is too much of a problem, and so they're not only tackling the amount of gold they get, and they're not only tackling the pace at which they can clear their camps, which I'll get to in a little bit, but they're also nerfing the amount of damage that a lot of these damaged keystones will do. Finally, for the system changes, Baron is just getting a bit healthier. Freak notes that with mythic passives and player skill getting a bit better, Baron is simply too weak. They want there to be more effort than just doing the Baron because someone's on the other side of the map and being able to kill it so quickly. And, honestly, this is another nerf to jungle agency because 99% of the time, the jungler is there for the Baron take. Likewise, if there's going to be a sneak on Baron, in which 2 to 3 champions take it without the enemy team knowing, the jungler is always one of those people there. Next, jungle agency nerfs. Smite's damage to champions is getting gutted, from 20 to 160 to 40 flat. Yeah, this is huge. 40 flat damage is absolutely nothing. Smite will only kill somebody who is less than an auto attack's worth of damage. This is a huge nerf. Junglers don't take a combat summoner because they need Smite, and Freak says this aim is nerfing mid to late game jungle, where they believe the role has far too much agency. They want to gate jungle at being the objective specialist in some ways, but in other ways they're kind of sending mixed messages, which I'll get to in a little bit. The AoE damage to camps after Evolve is getting increased from 50% to 100%. Really, this is a small change, but I think this is a slight buff to single target junglers that don't want to spend all that time later in the game clearing wolves, clearing raptors, clearing the Krugs, where when you just smite now, it's going to deal 1200 damage to absolutely everything. Likewise, smite no longer grants 20% damage reduction from epic monsters when 2 allies are nearby. This kind of goes back to what I was talking about earlier. They're taking away the damage on smite, and so really the only reason you have smite is for objective control, but then they're also taking away the fact that the jungler doesn't need to be the one tanking the dragon or the baron, which is a bit weird because now if someone doesn't tank it for you, you're just going to be taking more damage, more reliance on your team. But these are jungle agency nerfs. They're also nerfing the jungle pets. Freak is nerfing the power of the jungle pets because junglers get all these stats for just not buying a Doran's item. But I think this is probably the biggest thing that I really disagree with. He mentions in his video that not only do junglers not get the health and the healing or the AD or the AP, whatever else you get from the Doran's items, which are really solid by the way, and they're getting buffed, but junglers must also complete the stacking that the jungle pet requires. Meaning, junglers are straight up down all of these stats on laners for like 20 minutes minimum into a game. Freak said that it's usually around level 11 that junglers will stack their item. Like, that's very late to not have any benefit for the 500 gold that you start the game with. This is the entire early game and getting into the mid game where you're simply down already golden XP on solo laners, but also down a pretty solid, basically component item. So, the exact changes. They're removing the slow resist and tenacity on Moss Stomper. Gustwalker's brush movement speed reduced from 45% to 30%, and Gustwalker's monster kill MS reduced from 60% to 45% as well. Scorched Claw, however, the slow now has to be triggered with an attack or an ability instead of any damage source. So, for example, because Riot is changing Smite to no longer count as spell damage, because you don't have to basically forcibly stack the slows on Smite and Scorched Claw passive when you smite somebody. But now Smite will no longer count as a spell damage for proccing things like Night Harvester. Let's get into camp health. Apparently the camp health changes will not affect your first clear. Basically, for those that don't know, camp level scales with the average level of the champs in the game when they spawn. So at level 1, because everyone is level 1, camps will spawn at level 1. They're increasing the jungle health scaling, however, by about 5% more per regular camp and about 10% more for blue and red buff. This effectively means that clear 2+, all of your camps are going to be more durable. And so Freak notes that camp level 4, 6, 8, and 10 will have about 5 to 10% more health than they do now. They're also removing the jungle health cap for level 11 camps. So as of right now, level 11 camps have 200% HP compared to level 1 camps on live servers. However, they're removing that cap, and now camps will continue to scale all the way to level 18. From level 11 to level 18, they're going to receive about 5% more durability and more HP per level. They're nerfing the AD and AP ratio on the jungle pet. The AD ratio is getting a significant nerf, meaning all AD junglers are going to be just clearing completely slower. However, they're substantially buffing the MR ratio and armor ratio on the jungle pet, meaning for any champion that is stacking resistances like Rammus or Sejuani, this is actually going to be a substantial buff to their clear. Moving on to the Rift Scuttler, they're increasing Scuttle's health mid-game and late-game. First Scuttle right now isn't really that good anyway, and it's good still when you can get it early, but you know, you were more playing for those later Scuttle Crabs. Now, it's going to be very similar. In fact, it might even cement that more. Scuttle Crab is going to become a little bit more tanky, but overall, it's still going to be giving you a lot of XP later into the game, in which they're kind of standardizing it with the amount of XP that other camps will give you later into the game. Scuttles are definitely going to be good to take, especially after the first one. Finally, Riot is adding some anti-poaching measures into the game. Basically, the jungle item bonus damage to camps is being increased from 20% now to 42%. Overall, what you need to know is that laners, if you don't have a jungle item, the camps are going to appear much more tanky to you now. Junglers, you're not going to notice a difference. Actually, nothing for junglers will change whatsoever. What this means, I think practically speaking, is that people will be less likely to steal your camps. But as well, leashes are going to suck. Finally, one of the bigger changes that I think is going under the radar is anti-poaching the opposite way. Junglers, we're going to be getting even less XP from minions early into the game. Right now, we receive 40 to 75% XP from levels 1 to 14. Now, we're going to be receiving 30 to 100% from minutes 1 to 20. This averages to 8% less XP overall from lane minions compared to live. I think practically speaking, what this means is that when you go and gank, you don't need to stay for the wave. Really, this is a nerf more so to ganking style junglers who just get their XP from getting the actual kill and shoving in the wave afterwards. It's still good to shove the wave because we don't want to leave our laners with bad wave states, but overall, you're going to be getting nothing for it. I think these changes are relatively fine overall, which might be controversial thing to say. But the smite damage nerf is pretty bad, and the anti-poaching measure I think is kind of weird in the sense that it actually hurts junglers with the leash. I think the best junglers overall are probably going to be fighters and maybe like Juggernaut style champions, because the buff to like health and resistances that the jungle pet is getting, really they're going to be clearing really well, and they're going to be able to still gank lanes. Assassins, I think, are really going to struggle here. The AD nerf and the AP nerf, plus the fact that camps are just getting more and more durable, and you get less XP from the lanes, I'm very concerned about the direction this is going. We could be seeing a tank fighter meta pretty much sprout out of nowhere. I hope this was a relatively quick and easy way to digest all the changes, and there's going to be even more coming for preseason 14, but this is just the start. Alright, have an awesome day. Please consider liking and subscribing. Pope Pay out.